Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where me and Joseph are breaking down the latest and greatest Premier League action. Now, we're fresh off the back of hyping up Eddie Howe's men after their 2-1 defeat of Spurs. Now, we're back to take Antonio Conte and his team to task. So what we're here to address on this episode is it really that bad? Right? Okay, stick with us. Now, despite convincing losses to Arsenal and Manchester United...
Very convincing to United. Very
convincing. Tottenham's start to the season was okay, wasn't it? I mean, prior to kick-off against Newcastle, they were 7 points better off at this stage of the season versus last season. They were one of 3 teams to have a 100% home record in the current campaign. In fact, they'd won 8 home games on the bounce, their second best stretch of the Premier League era, and they'd bagged 15 goals in their first 5 home games. So worth acknowledging some of the good work that Spurs, Conte had done at the start of the campaign. However, yet to beat a side that currently resides in the top 6. Obviously drew with Chelsea in the last days of Tuchel.
Lucky as well.
Deserved to lose that. Yeah, beaten by Arsenal after having a man sent off, of course, Emerson Royale, but convincingly, like you put great emphasis on, beaten by Manchester United. So, Joe, was the loss to Newcastle just a bad day at the office, or are we starting to see something else develop, something more insidious?
No, I don't think it was just a bad day at the office. I think this is a bit of a problem for Antonio Conte, to be honest with you. I'm aware there were injuries yesterday and you know, problems with the first team lineup, so let's address that straight away.
Yeah.
You know, Romero is a massive blow when he's not available for Tottenham. The step down to Davinson Sanchez is large, and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has been superb for Tottenham this season. So when he's not there, you know, you are missing something. Richarlison's also not fit, is he? And Dejan Kulusevski is a major problem because he links everything together. The way Conte wants to play football relies on a player like Dejan Kulusevski. But there is a clear blueprint now of how to beat this Tottenham team. It's been shown by Chelsea, by Arsenal, by Man United and by Newcastle that if you press them really high, they do not have the capability to get through the lines quickly and progress the ball to Kane and Son. Kane and Son look constantly isolated when you press them high. Newcastle, as we said in the earlier episode, are one of the best pressing teams in the league. Manchester United pressed them really effectively, and it just causes chaos at the back. I thought Hugo Lloris looked constantly panicked yesterday, and that kind of came to fruition, didn't it, with him coming off his line really poorly for the Callum Wilson goal, the bit of distribution for the Almiron goal as well, where he kind of tries that chipped ball out wide.
Do you think that this panic laid waste to a decent first 20 minutes? Because they did outshoot Newcastle 8-2 in that time frame and looked okay without being, you know,
I think that
inspiring.
That was probably them at like where they're looking at their best though, and even that was transitional. It was when Newcastle gave the ball away and they could get through the lines very quickly and get the ball into Son very quickly. He could turn and shoot, or he could play 1-2s with Kane and shoot. I think where I struggle to see with Tottenham's progress is game control. Like, I never feel like, I certainly did it against Newcastle or Man United or Arsenal or Chelsea, that at any stage they had control of the game, either on or off the ball. Because a lot of people will say, you know, Conte's fine with not having the ball. He's in control of it off the ball. I don't feel like that Tottenham are currently in control of games when they're off the ball. Like, it felt like Newcastle were easily able to press the ball forward, and they are then not able to, be that via the creativity of the midfield, of Højbjerg, of Skip, of Bentancur, of Bissouma, who looks like he's really struggling to get up to pace. I just think that they are overall off it. And that's not to say they aren't going to win games, because I still think that the way Conte controls games off the ball against smaller teams will win them matches. But against the big boys that are going to go there and press and dominate the ball, they look nervous. They look like they've got the creativity in the midfield to progress the ball. And, you know, the fullbacks, I don't think they're the quality that Conte needs of a wing-back. I thought Sessegnon was pretty poor yesterday, and I think Perisic was much better when he came on. Emerson Royale, you know, Conte persists with him, but what more has Jed Spence got to do to get a game? Is Jed Spence ever going to play in this team? I don't see it with Emerson Royale from what Conte wants from a wing-back. His crossing. Beat the first man, please.
And when that's not working out wide, right, Spurs have a huge problem because their creativity going through the centre is really poor. And It was Oliver Skipp that was tasked with making things happen in the opposition's third yesterday, wasn't it? I mean, he created 3 chances, which is pretty solid. He was making those third-man runs in the absence of a out-and-out attacking midfielder. But it's a pretty poor state of affairs when you're turning to Oliver Skipp, who's starting his first Premier League game since January, to do damage in that area. I mean, I thought that Bentancur was great in this game. I actually felt sorry for him. I thought he put in a really solid performance, was great in transition, brilliant at defending, drove his team up the pitch really, really well. But yeah, Bissouma, after an okay first 10-15, looked very nervous passing through the lines. And I think that Newcastle just started to swarm him, other vulnerable members of Tottenham's backline, Davinson Sanchez. They pinpointed the guys who do not want to pass it out really, really well, and that just ties in to what you were saying about how they just couldn't move it from back to front quick enough, which is something they are devastating at when all their key personnel are there, which brings us on to the question of depth. Now, Conte, in his post-match interview, complaining about depth, saying he hasn't really got the squad to handle a Premier League game every 3 days and stay competitive at the highest level. Do we have some sympathy there with him, given, you know, the drop-off in quality from player A to B that you just mentioned?
I mean, to a level. But, you know, 60 million was dropped on Richarlison as sort of a rotation option in the forward line, wasn't he? He wasn't a guaranteed start with the form of Kulusevski.
He's missed the last 5 games, of course.
Bissouma, £25 million was dropped on him to add to the midfield depth when he already had spent money on Bentancur as well. And Højbjerg's there, Skipp was still there, you know. Longley was bought in at centre-back. There was full-backs bought in on both flanks. So I think, yes, to a level in terms of quality, but certainly quantity was brought in the summer. 2 months ago, people were saying Tottenham had one of the best windows of any side in the league. That seems to have gone very quiet, very quickly. I really think Kulusevski's injury has hampered Tottenham terribly. Because he is so vital to the way they progress the ball and the way they create chances. And it really concerns me. Conte was kind of saying, well, might not be back until after the World Cup.
Yeah, particularly with Son looking
huge.
So fatigued. Right?
I know.
Son does not look himself at all at current. And just to elaborate on the point you're making there with Kulusevski, points per game with him, 2.2. Points per game without him, 1.5. So it is sizable, isn't it? But even in the absence of those important players, we are seeing some alarming trends starting to develop against
un-Conte-like trends.
The better sides. And one of them is just the sheer volume of chances that Spurs are giving up. So they faced 173 shots in their first 11 Premier League games, with only Everton and Nottingham Forest facing more. Of course, that doesn't include yesterday. I think Newcastle put up 13 to Spurs' 17. So they didn't get battered yesterday, but they certainly...
Still 7 shots on target.
Yeah, Newcastle certainly went toe-to-toe with them, didn't they, on that front? They faced 28 shots in the 2-0 defeat to Manchester United that we mentioned earlier. The most shots faced by any Premier League side this season, and the most ever faced by a Conte side in 318 games of management.
It's so un-Conte-like. So un-Conte-like.
Normally, in the absence of star personnel, he can lean on his system. Why is he not able to do it here?
I don't know, because even when you look at the system, it's actually got more defensive than it was at the start of the season with Kulusevski in the team. You know, we saw it against, I think Brighton was the first time he kind of used that 5-3-2 with the 3 screening midfielders in front of a back 3 of Højbjerg, Bissouma and Bentancur. And I actually thought, you know what, they look a bit more solid here. They look a bit better. I thought Brighton away was actually, you know, I thought it was going to be a bit of a change. But even with that amount of defensive personnel on show against Manchester United, it was just wave after wave. I think it was 19 shots in the first half or something. Unsustainable. Totally unsustainable, despite the fact they are playing an incredibly defensive brand of football.
So what do they do in January to remedy this? Barring, you know, bring Richarlison back, Kulusevski back, Romero back, which will help.
Definitely.
Pretty emphatically. But do they need to shop around for an attacking midfielder? Is it, you know, back to the drawing board in the wing-back positions? Because we thought Perisic was going to be his guy, but he's not made a huge impression at Premier League level, has he? In his sparing amount of minutes.
And obviously Jed Spencer's made little to no impact there, has he? Matt Doherty's kind of flitted in and out of the side. I'm not too sure. I think January's going to be... Yeah, maybe we should. Who would you sign, first and foremost? But I just don't think January is going to be the easiest window to sign players, because if a player has a good World Cup, the premium on his value is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I think Tottenham are going to be fine in that sort of top 6 battle, but I had them kind of nailed on like 3rd. I think they are really very much in a battle for 4th now.
I do think when Conte has his strongest 11 at his disposal, they're probably still the 4th or 5th best team in the country. Those players that we mentioned carry out his plan, his tactical blueprint to the nth degree, don't they? Unlike the players who are coming in. And I think for those reasons, if they're still experiencing these injury woes come January, he will start to be a bit more bullish.
And he's out of contract
with his transfer demands. That's what I mean. He's out of contract at the end of the campaign. He'll probably use that as leverage, won't he? Definitely. To secure some more players that he wants. That puts Daniel Levy in a very, very awkward position. And Harry Kane, lest we forget, also out of contract in 18 months. So short to medium term, question marks over that. Long term, looks even more sus at current. But what would you do with this Tottenham outfit? Is it a matter of signing new players or just riding this very difficult wave in terms of injuries? Let us know in the comments below. And like I said in the last episode, I will hit you up in the first hour. Like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll catch you next week on Winners and Losers. Bye-bye.